We're up really early today in Paris, but it's actually quite peaceful. We have 10 a.m. tickets to see the Mark Rothko show at the Louis Vuitton Foundation, and it takes about 45 minutes to get there on the subway from Le Marais. But the whole neighborhood is just starting to wake up, and we're going to have a really quick breakfast at one of my favorite places, Wild in the Moon. And this place is honestly my savior when I come to Paris because when I travel for long periods of time, I don't know if you guys feel like this, but I feel like I really miss out on getting a balanced diet, nutrients, and this place has the most incredible food, really great green juices, and I feel like it just kind of resets me. I love the Louis Vuitton Foundation for so many reasons, but a huge one is the building. Anything Frank Gehry does is absolutely genius, and this building is so stunning. I'm going to make sure to take you all to the roof after we see the show. But I also really appreciate how they put together these incredible exhibits. It's very much unlike other museums. I also highly recommend booking tickets in advance. So even though this show goes into the spring of next year, tickets were already sold out for a week when we first got to Paris. Another thing I love about the Louis Vuitton Foundation is their app. They have an app that has these really great audio guides where you can listen to them as you're walking through the exhibit. And I just think it adds a little something special. They're free, which is also nice. So we're going to start on the lower level of the museum, and it was very dark and super busy. So I just took a few pictures as a part of this exhibit. I feel like I was honestly able to capture the artworks a little better that way. So thank you for being patient with me on this format. So Mark Rothko hasn't had a retrospective in Paris since 1999. And this one was actually curated by his son, Christopher Rothko, who provides some really great insights into his father's emotional state at various times, which I thought was special. You really get to see how much Rothko's work has evolved over the years. Like, for example, I never knew that he had a period of painting figuratively, so that was a really pleasant surprise. These works were the ones that Rothko created in his 30s, in the 1930s, and he captured scenes from everyday life, such as going to the movies, walking on the street, and most importantly, the subways. These were very popular works. But he was not satisfied with figurative painting. He felt like he was mutating the human form. So this is actually the only self-portrait of Rothko's career. And to create this, he actually copied the composition from Rembrandt's self-portrait in the National Gallery that he was a fan of. These are paintings that Rothko created in the early 1940s, and you can see his style has significantly shifted away from figurativism and more towards neo-surrealism. So this style of painting was in response to what was going on at the time within society, which was the start of World War II. These works were created in the late 40s, and the composition has a wider variety of colors as well as shapes compared to the style that we really know him for today. These have been dubbed multiforms, and they represent Rothko's foray into abstraction, leaving his previous surrealist style behind. And we can really start to see hints of the style he maintained for the rest of his life with these rectangular shapes starting to emerge. So the exhibit continues on to the next floor, and these works were created in the 1950s, and they're what we would consider the classic Rothkos that we know and love today. In the late 1950s, Rothko started creating his first dark paintings. He didn't believe himself to be a colorist, despite being known for these multicolored works. He was more interested in light and how works in a dark environment could really give off their own light. These works were created in the early 1960s, and in these works, he was really interested in harmonies, in intense colors that could again create this light from within. These works are called the Black on Gray series, and they're painted in the late 1960s. And in them, he was really motivated to reduce the amount of shapes he was using in his works, and he reduced them down to just two, kind of these two planes. So Rothko was a fan of Giacometti after seeing his works in shows in New York, and he even had the chance to display one of his works in France next to a Giacometti. And he didn't say it outright, but it was implied that this grayish brown and kind of black color palette may have been inspired by Giacometti's sculptures of a similar hue. And that's all for the Mark Rothko exhibit. Of course, I am just showing you a little snapshot. There are over 115 works in the show across 4 floors. There's so much to see and dive into. I just scratched the surface. The roof of the Louis Vuitton Foundation is one of my favorite parts of the building because, in my opinion, you feel like you're inside of this giant ship. And it also has a really just stunning views of Paris. Keep an eye out. You will see a little peek of the Eiffel Tower as well. This is the Tuileries Garden, which was actually created by Catherine de' Medici as a garden of the Tuileries Palace in 1564. And it became open to the public in 1667, and then it became a public park after the French Revolution. And you've probably seen the classic green chairs on Instagram. This is that park. We're now going to make a quick stop into one of the most incredible department stores in Paris. In London, you have Liberty, and in Paris, you have La Samaritaine. And it is right in front of the Louvre, so it's really conveniently located. It was built in the early 1900s and adorned in the Art Nouveau aesthetic, which makes it so special in my opinion. LVMH bought it in 2001, and it took them many years to renovate it. I honestly can't even imagine with all of the detail and the architecture. I also can't believe they've already decorated it for Christmas, considering it's October, but it's very beautiful and it definitely gets you inspired to shop for the holidays, which I guess is what they were going for. We're now going to head back to Le Marais to see an exhibit of works by Issy at Lafayette Anticipations. The Galeries Lafayette is another stunning upmarket department store in France. They opened this space in 2018 and named it Lafayette Anticipations. And it's an exhibition space for visual arts, but also fashion, design, and the performing arts. And it's a really, really beautiful space. This is Issy Wood's first solo show in France, and it's quite extensive given how young she is. The show spans 3 floors and it contains over 60 works. The show is a little bit like a diary of her life over the past few years, and she definitely uses humor as a means of communicating with us. So many of the objects that she captures are kind of artifacts of our contemporary society. And she really emphasizes objects that symbolize a powerful lifestyle within our society. So think things like fancy cars, porcelain sets, giant diamond rings. This is kind of Wood's way of exploring the power structures that govern our society. And she's almost saying, like, I see you and I reject you. I don't know Woods, I've never met her, but just looking at her works and kind of reading about her, I feel like she always gives off these really rebellious vibes, whether that be her speaking about turning down the opportunity for Gagosian to represent her, or honestly just her hilarious commentary accompanying her works. She definitely seems to approach life with this very tongue-in-cheek attitude, in my opinion. Maybe that's her British background, but I think this show really speaks to where she is in her life right now. She's growing up, she's coming into her own, and she's understanding and really embracing her power. And the title of the exhibit reflects this. It's called The Study for No, which is all about embracing the power of saying no, owning your own decisions and your life's trajectory, and really being intentional about what you let in. In terms of this assemblage type of composition, Wood states the quote, "I am constantly assembling images for paintings, and sometimes what I decide to paint is just what happens to be in my orbit at the time. This painting was made while I was trying to sell my car, shopping for light fittings for my home, and browsing novelty jelly molds." As an evolution of her jacket series, which we just saw a few of, Wood evolved into painting armor. And this was her way of kind of exploring the idea of how garments bounce back and forth between being protection and ornamentation. And in this painting from 2021, Steed Energy, she juxtaposes the two, so armor and the jacket. I really love this work because it captures Wood in a very personal gesture. It's almost more personal than a self-portrait in my opinion, because it looks like she's lovingly stroking the work. And she says, quote, "This painting was the very coy starting point for what later became self-portraits. It felt safe to introduce my own hand into the frame before addressing my own face. This is also a reliable portrait of how I find imagery in auction catalogs. Growing up, I was always admonished for touching family photos in case my greasy hands ruined their surface. Here, I'm celebrating adulthood by touching whatever I want." This is furniture that Woods painted, someone said, I think for Frieze London, maybe the 2021 edition. And she says the quote, "The painted furniture has much in common with the porcelain works. They reveal a thwarted attempt at hosting, intimacy, homemaking. What could be more hopeless than a chair you can't sit on, a porcelain plate you can't eat off of? In museums and stately homes in the UK, they often put pine cones on chairs to let you know you can't sit on them." I think this room is such a great way to end the show. It really brings it full circle. If we think back to that work on the ground floor where she was kind of timidly exploring the idea of a self-portrait, in this room, she's fully embracing self-portraits. She's putting herself on display. And I just think that's a really great metaphor of her really coming into her own. We're going to end the night at a classic upscale French restaurant named after the writer Voltaire. And the reason it's named after him is this is actually the building where he lived. And that's all from my Paris trip. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did, sharing it with you all. The next stop is going to be Italy. So if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so you will get alerted when that video goes live. And I will see you all there.